My name is Perez Brown. I'm the Water Quality Specialist for the City of Murfreesboro Stormwater Department, and I'd like to welcome you all to our Rain Barrel Workshop. Stormwater, what stormwater is water that comes from any form of precipitation. That's rain, snow, sleet. If you can think about it, whatever comes from the sky, that's what stormwater is. And it also refers to the practices that we at the city implement, that engineers and construction, what they implement to control where that water flows and how it flows. Now, how does it work? The rain goes into drains, pipes, and it goes to our water sources or our practices, which we use to kind of contain the water itself. This is very important for stream health, flood control, and minimizing the spread of debris and impurities into our water sources and rivers. Now, what I specifically do is I manage our illicit discharge program. What illicit discharge is anything that is in our storm water that's not supposed to be there. Oil, grease, dirt. If dirt is in the storm water, it's not supposed to be there. I promise you that. And so, why is that important? Of course, because cleaner water is also, of course, a cleaner life, a better life. You will see two contacts on there. You'll see Josh's contact on the top, and you will see mine. If you see anybody dumping anything down the storm drain, if you see a leak anywhere within the city, and you want to report it, you want to let us know, and we hope that you would. We hope that you do. You could contact any of these numbers there up front. Now, this QR code here, this will carry you directly to our stormwater website, where you can fill in information and report the discharge to our internal systems. Now, if you can't contact Josh, if you can't contact me, and for God knows why, the system is down and you can't report it through there, at the back, just flip it over. You have the number for our office, the main office, and you can report it there, and they will let us know. And we'll come out, we'll investigate. I will come out personally, and I will investigate, and we will get whatever is wrong corrected. And now, the reason we all here are rain barrels. We all came here for our rain barrels to save ourselves a little bit of water and a little bit of money to water our plants and to do whatever we please with our rain barrels. So what a rain barrel is just a simple system to collect and conserve your water. Now, this can be placed near a downspout. This can be left in the open. A lot of people cut their gutters and they lift it up on a small, like a pallet or place to allow that water not to leak, just to keep the rain barrel from damage. And it's many ways that you can use a rain barrel and use the water. Why you guys are here today, of course, is because it's a method of conserving your water that everybody could do. It's something that we all could do. It's a way we all could dip our toes in the water, saving it. You know, we only have a limited amount of water on this earth, and reusing it as much and conserving it as much and keeping it as clean as possible not only helps with your personal health and your personal finances, but also with the community and this earth, of course.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about stormwater. As Perez said, stormwater is basically any precipitation collected off of a hard surface, and then eventually goes into the public drainage system. And so the state of Tennessee says that if we're going to discharge stormwater off of all of these impervious surfaces, we have to have a permit. And so to do so into our local streams. And here's a question. Who here, raise your hand if you think stormwater goes to a treatment plant? That's good. So it doesn't. It goes, like I just said, to local streams. By using a rain barrel, you all are part of stormwater management. You all are taking part in stormwater management, which is part of our permit. We've got to have events to require that, and then education. And so one of our jobs is to educate everybody more on stormwater pollution. So just a little basics on stormwater. I like this illustration because on the far left, you see how lush that forest, I don't think that's around here, but You see open dirt there on the trail, lots of leaves, lots of tall vegetation below. That's kind of the perfect scenario during rain events. It's going to basically soak up and infiltrate most of the rain. But you see there, the middle image, that's when we start having runoff. And you have a little bit more hard surfaces, and then you see the green lines there. And that's the public drainage system. So with more rooftops and roads, you start getting more runoff. And then the last image there is not too far from us. I don't think we're in that view, but that's the downtown area. And so you can see, look at all the imperviousness, all the hard surfaces. And not really do y'all see much of an opportunity for treatment there. Most of that is going directly to a stream. So that's kind of one of the main principles in stormwater, is that to help treat stormwater, we want to encourage infiltration of rain. And really it's thought, and this number may be a little bit off, but any watershed or a drainage area going to a stream greater than 20% impervious starts to suffer. The stream starts to suffer. So that's because these impervious surfaces, they collect pollutants on them, the brake dust off your cars, the coolant, even the breakdown of the surfaces themselves. We have programs in the city I'll talk about in a minute where they go and clear out the drainage system because there's so much grit because the asphalt breaks down, and then if they're not clearing it out, it goes straight out to the stream. You can actually go walk, or you used to be able to walk in a stream and flip a rock and it's just covered in these sediments and dirt. So these impervious surfaces really impact streams. Some of the top causes of stormwater pollution is sediment, then bacteria, believe it or not. Bacteria can accumulate in the drainage system. And then our habitat alteration, these are our stream sides, the vegetated area along a stream. It can damage during development, and then nutrients. So these are kind of top causes of pollution. And so what we want to do is kind of prioritize our catchments that have the high imperviousness, they're low in vegetation, and really have little stormwater treatment. That kind of tells us where we want to spend more effort. Plant trees along streams, get stormwater practices. And so a little bit more about our stormwater permit. You can see this image. Look at all those drains. I forget the number, but there's over 50,000 drains in the city. And so that kind of gives an idea of how much is going to your local streams. And so in our permit, it says we've got to have these sub-program areas. It says we've got to have a program for education, participation. You all are part of that tonight. Illicit discharge, like Perez talked about. Construction site runoff. Have y'all noticed all the construction sites around town? Anybody notice the black fencing along the construction site? We have a whole program. Our engineering and planning departments deal with that, have inspectors that go out, make sure that the construction sites are stable. And this really just shows the old way of managing stormwater. You can see the image there, all the pipes up there at that vast parking lot, collecting pollution from vehicles, and then it went straight to the stream there. So there's no intervention at all. It's just straight to the stream. Nowadays, we want to encourage infiltration, and so you'll start seeing, has anybody noticed these paver areas out in parking lots pretty much across the city? That's to encourage infiltration, and then more of a traditional detention basin there to the right. So these are just some ways that we're trying to get infiltration, prevent so much runoff. And then another thing that we're doing is the stream side buffer. It turns out that the vegetative buffer alongside the stream is really important to the stream. And so we try to educate folks on that if you live next to a stream and your house has been built since 2008, you may have one of these protected areas, and the intent of that is to keep the stream buffer in place so it can hold the banks in place, shade the stream, and create habitat. what are the challenges of stormwater management? And there's lots of them. I'll give a few here to answer that question. One is just the lack of elevation. We're in the bottom of a basin, and so a lot of times when they build out neighborhoods, there's just not a lot of slope in the drainage ditches, and so water will sit there for a little bit in some cases, and that's just because of the grade of the streams. Maintenance of detention ponds. Some of our detention ponds are built in kind of lower areas, and they turn kind of into wetlands again. And so there's different expectations. Does it need to look more like a wetland, or does it need to be cleaned and mowed down low? And so, and then one of the more common challenges are whether to use a grass channel or a concrete channel in conveying water. Sometimes grass channels would develop sinkholes and fallouts, and so you'll have to use a concrete channel, but that helps take the water directly to the stream. And so moving on, so what is the city doing? Most city departments are involved in stormwater management. We have water quality projects going on. Probably one of the most visible projects, if you drive downtown near Canonsburg, is the daylighting of Downtown Creek. So that was a stream that was put in a culvert back in the 1950s. And so recently the city has designed plans to bring that back to the surface. And you can see there it's going to introduce that buffer and some structure in the stream. But more importantly, things are going on all the time. We've got vacuum trucks out there clearing sediment out of the line, street sweepers that are really effective in removing that grit off the roads and the impervious surfaces. And so what can homeowners do? What can you all do to help manage stormwater? But I think increasing native vegetation areas, plant more trees, establish native vegetation areas in your backyards, your front yards, pollinator sites, possibly replace some of your landscaping with native deep-rooted plants. Kristin with Parks and Rec may talk a little bit about that later. And then as we've talked about rain barrels help capture that water before it goes out to your yard and then the street eventually, bag your yard waste, and wash cars and grass. So that's just some of the things that you all can do to help manage stormwater. And then lastly, all of this stuff, we kind of condensed it there, but all of our program is on our city website, and it's broken down. We highly recommend you all go to the city website, kind of look around in the different programs, make comments. We have an annual report that summarizes all of our activities, the quality of the streams, everything that we're doing. And so, yeah, we recommend you all comment and look into that.
So there are federal, state, and local regulations, and they address the polluted runoff from rainwater and also the activities and where that pollution may come from in the community. So we've done outreach to like businesses on how to handle your wash water, obviously construction when they're renovating, making sure people don't, rinse their materials out and use the storm drain as an outside drain. We covered this, but as the rain washes through, it's picking up all those pollutants depending on what business. Sometimes it's restaurants, sometimes it's pressure washers, all those means of cleaning and washing through our community that ends up out on the pavement. And so detergents is an issue, oil and grease, obviously the nitrogen and that from our yard waste, pet waste, litter, and then the other reason of this can cause the algae blooms that we see in our streams, especially if they're in the sunlight or hot and it's not stagnant, or if it's stagnant water and it's not moving, then we can get algae blooms. So we're under a co-permit. I think I've mentioned this sometimes at my programs, but we do a co-permit with the city of Murfreesboro, and so we are under one permit under the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. That's an actual permit cover that we're under right now. And TDEC, who's the Department of Environment and Conservation, that's who administers it. EPA basically gives states the authority, and so we're under TDEC's rule, and the goal is to just obviously improve water quality. And we've covered this too, but we're called an MS4, and the MS4 is a municipal separate storm sewer system, so that's how that's broken out. And basically it's just to show that the storm sewer system is separate from the sanitary sewer system. And that's not in every community. Some communities that are a lot older can have combined systems, like some areas in Nashville and Chattanooga, and that may have some in the larger, older cities, but they're really working hard to get those separated. And then as it flows off, it's going to our nearby streams. So I included this mostly to show, you know, people don't see our streams. We're disconnected from our streams, and unless we're crossing over, you know, a roadway that says you've just now, you know, you're at Lytle Creek or something like that, then a lot of times people aren't getting out and getting in their streams. So this is some of the streams that are in our Murfreesboro area. We break these when we're doing our outreach. We break a lot of our events so that we target these specifically, and especially when we do our tree day that I'll talk about in a little bit, we kind of go around to these different ones because each of these areas have different concerns, and we see different issues. Sometimes even the stream itself changes. Some of our streams have a lot of bedrock, some are broken down, some have sinkholes and go dry, so we really have a lot of changes even in our streams throughout our city. But obviously everybody probably knows now we're in the Stones River watershed, and we have 921 square miles in this watershed, over 1,000 stream miles, 22,000 acres in our lake water, and I believe we just added a new natural area, so we've got 13 natural areas now. But it does drain to the Cumberland River Basin, which is massive, but it's one of the large basins. I brought a map. Cumberland River Basin is one of these that's in this map, so I put this link in case you guys want to go to it, but you can Google Guide to Tennessee Watersheds and you can pull this up, and then it breaks all of our basins up. The Cumberland River Basin's over 18,000 square miles, 22,000 miles of streams, and it's home to nearly 2.5 million people, and it covers all or portions of 70 counties, which is just to show you, and that's one of 4 across the state. So you can see why we want citizens a part of this, because all the pollution is coming from all these different ways that we live in these watersheds. And it's also home to a lot of plant and animal species. So this is an example of that, and you can Google this and pull this up if you're ever interested. We used to put these at the rest areas. There were like 90,000 printed in around 2010. And we've gone through most of those doing our outreach and education. But it's really neat to kind of know in case you even want to travel the state and see, because our state is so diverse with water, and our watersheds change across our state. TDEC has these data viewers, and it kind of shows the health of your streams. And red streams obviously are impaired. They're high pollution or some pollutant issue. This is an example kind of a paper version of that, and it's a map that the Cumberland River watershed did for our watershed, the Stones River. And this is an interesting map because it tells you your stream miles and what some of the issues are and the locations. But I'll show you in a minute. You can go and actually put in your zip code and kind of identify what's going on nearby where you live. And this is kind of, Josh talked about this, but this is an example of some of the pollution in our streams and kind of a percentage of how that's affecting. Low dissolved oxygen, as you can see, 7%. That's something that we have to worry about here because we have streams that are very shallow. Sometimes they're stagnant, and so moving water and cool water has a lot more oxygen. So how that flow is moving, our habitat. That habitat alteration, that's 24%. That's why planting, if you're beside a stream, that is so critical, and we're losing a lot of habitat. But a lot of people across the state have been trying to improve that. Nutrients, metals, pesticides, sediment, especially with all the development, and just pathogens. Pathogens would be, and we'll talk about this on a slide, any leaking septic lines or something like that is a big contributor. Tennessee has reports that they'll assess all of this, but I mainly put this up. It's a busy slide, but Tennessee classifies its streams on uses. And so there's 7 main uses: the fish and aquatic life, recreation, irrigation, livestock, and wildlife. Your drinking water supply, obviously we need water. We couldn't do anything without, you know, the water that we all need. Navigation, a lot of our rivers, especially from the Cumberland River, our navigation for goods to travel, and then industrial water supply. And so what we do, the state categorizes, and basically if it's meeting these uses, then it's fully supporting. That's a category 1. That means your stream is in really good health. And then it goes all the way down to 5 categories for restoration. So anywhere in between that mix, you have impairments. And I tried to find the exact slide, but somewhere around 30% of our waters that have been assessed, because as you can see here, we've got over 60,000 miles of streams and only about 30,000 have been assessed. But of those, about 30% even don't meet the full use for fully supporting for aquatic wildlife, which is quite high. And then I want to say around 40% doesn't meet for recreation. Like, it's not safe for us to be recreating. But then you think we drink that water. So as clean as we can keep our water helps us. So we definitely need clean water for all these reasons. We enjoy that's our Stones River right there. And I put this slide up to show our southeast is really rich in diversity because of the waterways that we have here. And if you can kind of tell in the middle, that's a real busy slide, but this kind of shows where most of the mammals live, or the birds, or the amphibians, or the reptiles, or the freshwater fish. And this is really critical, and I'll show a couple of other slides, but especially for our freshwater fish, talking about rivers, a lot of that lives here in our southeast. And some of these fish don't live anywhere else in the world. They're just in our areas. So I'll kind of show a few more slides. This is the U.S. and kind of shows where most of the biodiversity is and where they're trying to really have plans in place to help protect the wildlife that lives there. And the southeast, we're growing so fast. So where's the 2 highest growth areas in the U.S.? Right where all of our diversity is, our biodiversity. So that's why it's really beneficial for everybody to kind of pitch in and help. This is a species, there's several maps and they all kind of show different things. This kind of highlights a little bit more of where throughout the state different richness of biodiversity is. So that's kind of how we kind of came in to co-permit with the city. We both had permits. If you have a certain population size, you're regulated to have to do stormwater education, and if you have these conveyance of the pipes. And so we were already doing statewide education, like I said, creating materials for others. And so when the college got their stormwater program, we asked the city, could we just partner with you guys and help with the education? And then they help with a lot of the construction in the community. So that's why a lot of you see me around town. We go out to, we obviously do it on campus. I've been to several faculties when the kids are there. And then we go to schools, businesses, all the civic organizations, Rotary, Master Gardener, the Extension Office, Women's Club, like anywhere somebody will listen to us, we try and get in and talk to them. And then we actually go to homeowners and do door hangers. I did bring another example of a door hanger. If we've had problems with, say, dumping, we've gone and we've put door hangers out. This is an example of people, when Josh was mentioning from 2008, we started having these water quality protection areas. So anybody that lived in a water quality protection area, we put door hangers to kind of let them know. So we try and do a variety of different outreach and education to homeowners and businesses just to kind of let people know more specifically. These are some of the problems facing our urban streams, especially it's the baseline of the stream and what challenges it might have, whether it's bedrock, whether it has habitat or not. And then this, there's a lot of critters that tells us the health of the stream. If you go out and you dig around, you play with the critters. So the aquatic life is really important. And then, like Josh said, there's education, which is primarily what we do, and then trying to engage public to participate in this and helping them to understand why it's so challenging and why we really need the citizens to help us. So we create different materials with creative and visuals on campus and try and put that out. And then we have done outreach to various types of businesses, restaurants. We usually do chemical applicators to professionals that are trained to use that to help them understand their role in this too and how helpful they can be. And so this is some easy things. Josh covered most of this and also Perez, but we just want people to know what to look for when you're out there in the community. Anything that's on the storm drain that should not be there. Sometimes it's leaves that are loose and they get over there and they clog it up. I've seen dead possums, I've seen dead raccoons, like you just see everything basically. So if you do see something like that or you see log jams in the river or anything like that, you know who to call. And that again is just the office number for the city. And then we just ask people, especially with gardeners and people doing rain barrels, we know you're going to be working out in your yard, so probably the biggest thing is making sure that chemical, if you're using a chemical, is there a natural, is it really needed? Is there a natural alternative possibly that you could use? Is it the right use at the right time of the year, the right time of the season? Is it the right product, especially when we're talking about weed killers and some things like that? Are you putting it on with the right method? Do you need your equipment calibrated? Is it calibrated correctly? Is it the right way that you're applying it? All those things, we just really want everybody to follow that label and ask yourself before you use that chemical. And then soil test. A lot of this is landscapers and we'll do this outreach, but anytime you're not sure and you're going to apply something, can you soil test to make sure? And again, clean the pavement off when you've had your grass clippings, and do a no-mow buffer. Septic, we don't talk about this often enough, but there are some areas in our community that have old septic systems or in our county that have septic, and so we want to make sure that people are maintaining their septic systems and their field lines. And then if you are at a stream bank, make sure you have a diversity. We really want like 3 layers of canopy. Some of these that will go out into the waterway, and then all of these actually have really deep root systems, so they really help to armor that bank in place so you don't lose the stream bank. Plus there's some beautiful plants in there that are really beneficial, but they're also really pretty to look at. So these are some of the collection events that if you do have chemicals and you have to use it, make sure you know about the household hazardous waste events that are throughout the year, and you can take your house chemicals. Also your drug take back events, we do 2 on campus every spring and every fall. You can take those anytime to the sheriff's office. And then we just did a huge recycling roundup where we collected a lot of unusual items that don't usually get recycled. So your mattresses and tires and stuff like that a lot of times we see it that's dumping in our community. So hopefully we'll be able to have more of those. And we're actually seeing pharmaceuticals. That's why we've tried to let people realize we're seeing a lot of these things show up in the waterway, and then our systems have to work a lot harder to try and remove that. Some of our community events, Earth Day, hopefully you guys all come out to some of these. Conservation days that Kristin's going to talk about. Boat Day, if you want to get out on the water and play, now that we've protected it. There's a lot of ways we can get out and play. And then we're about to have Waterfest, which is where we do this education to kids. We'll have about, I don't know, maybe 700 kids at Old Fort doing water activities and helping them. And so every year we do this Free Trees for Streams, and that's where we are trying to do that bank. And you don't have to live beside a stream to come and participate if you want to do other native plants. But if you do live beside a stream, we just highly encourage you to come and we try and change up the plants all the time. We try and have high, low, different varieties of canopies and different types of plants. So you're welcome to come out to that, and make sure you share that with your friends. We always mail to people in one of the watersheds. We usually mail if somebody lives beside the river. We'll actually send them a letter, but everybody can participate at any time. It's usually the 1st or 2nd week of March. So if you're interested, make sure you follow us for that. Also come and volunteer. We do 2 events through the year trying to get the invasive species out of our waterways and that stream bank. Park Day is in the spring, and National Public Lands Day will be coming up in the fall. That's our date this year, is September 28th. We partner with the Stones River National Battlefield. They help us to remove privet and a lot of really invasive plants that are kind of getting in. And then sometimes we go back and we can plant trees with that. And then we usually do a litter cleanup. So those change around town, but those are 2 events every year. And we're getting to the end. This is just some resources that I thought you might be interested in. Again, Josh talked about the City of Murfreesboro's website. They've got really neat information on there about our streams, about some of the reports that they've done, some of the wildlife, some aquatic species that are nuisance, the stormwater program. That's How's My Waterway. You can actually type your zip code in and see what the nearby stream water quality is for where you live. Several of us are board members or involved with the Stones River Watershed Association. I'm a board member, Josh is a board member, and we've got some other people in our community, and we put most of this information on our Facebook. We don't have a Facebook for MTSU, so a lot of times I'll roll it through that. And then they actually help us, all the money, it's all volunteer, so all that money comes back into our community for stream projects. We do research at MTSU with some of that money. We buy supplies that a lot of times we don't have money for, or we'll partner. So follow us on the watershed. Tennessee, TWRI has amazing information on the wildlife that we're trying to protect. You can Google frogs and toads of Tennessee, and you can hear the sounds of frogs you're hearing if you're not sure how to identify. And they have a wildlife plan, and it's just a lot of really neat information. And then the USGS, if you do get out and you kayak or anything like that, there are gauges so that you know how safe the water is. We hope that you come to some of our events, you share this information with other people, and hopefully you understand a little bit more about our program.
My name is Nichole Jordan. I work for TennGreen Land Conservancy. And a little bit about TennGreen. We are the oldest accredited statewide land trust. We have protected over 50,000 acres of land. We're at like 51.5 right now, I think. We are accredited by the Land Trust Alliance, so that's our accrediting body every few years. And we are a nonprofit organization funded solely through the generosity of our members and sponsors. So there are land conservancies, like there's a Harpeth River Conservancy, there's a Wolf River Conservancy, there's a Foothills Conservancy. A lot of land trusts are focused on biomes or habitats or watersheds throughout the country. We're kind of unique in that we just focus on the entire state of Tennessee. So why we conserve land, we've already talked about this a lot. Locally, conservation, why we're conserving land. And this is B-Rock. This is right off Interstate 40. Beautiful, easy place to visit. And that's Alice is our executive director, and John is our communications director. So why we do what we do, we've already talked about a lot of this. Land affects all of us. Of course, everybody knows the direct benefits of being outside to our health and wellness, our mental health, our physical health, just being outside, just pictures of nature. Of course, our ecological systems thrive when we conserve land. We've talked a lot about how important water is. We need good quality water to drink and air to breathe to thrive. Of course, land conservation is a huge economic driver in Tennessee. I'm going to show you some of those numbers. And all of that comes down to a better quality of life if we have land. So this is an interesting study, the Cumberland Region Tomorrow study. The value of open space. And the number I really like is there's a $1.3 billion annual revenue in recreation here. So think the Smokies, think Fall Creek Falls. But the indirect savings of our health care, because we're being outside and we're being physical, and that's a pretty big number of the indirect benefit. $214 million in healthcare savings just from being outside. So like I said, huge economic driver. And this is so funny. So this is, the map is NatureServe. Esri is, all the stormwater people know probably Esri, but this is their newest map. And so I really love how it shows that Tennessee pops, right, in biodiversity. People don't realize that our state is the most biodiverse state that doesn't touch the ocean. So take away all the states that touch the ocean, and Tennessee pops. And biodiversity means range of species. So Tennessee is very special. And Cynthia already touched on this, but the freshwater fish, we are second in freshwater fish in this state. We're second in obligate cave species, so back to 5th grade science. Those are any flora or fauna that need a cave to survive, to complete its life cycle. And then amphibians, which are our frogs, toads, and our salamanders. We're 4th in those. And then, of course, our rivers we've already talked about, but the Duck River being basically one of the most biodiverse rivers in the entire world, and I think it's because of the mussels and then the freshwater fish. So Tennessee special, but we've got some threats. We've already talked about a lot of this. Non-point source pollution, we learned a little bit about that. Changing over our land from what it used to be, converting it to new things, development, urbanization, unsustainable land management practices, and then something people don't think about as much is the lack of conservation funding that we have in the state. We have a great relationship with the state of Tennessee, and I'll talk about that, but I think it might be the future lack of conservation funding that is, in comparison to other states that have this type of biodiversity, that is a threat. So, of course, this is one of those things that we could go over and over again. I'm trying to not spend as much time on this, but this is from our friends at the American Farmland Trust, wonderful organization. They compiled data from 2016, and then their projection to 2040 is that Tennesseans will pave over, compromise, or fragment over 1 million acres of farmland, and unfortunately, Rutherford County is the hardest hit county. Josh talked about us being flat, easier to develop. Sevier County in East Tennessee, and then Williamson County, which is just right down the road. So that is why we do what we do. Another depressing map from the Greater Nashville Regional Council. They are a conglomerate of government of councils. Obviously, Rutherford County's in the GNRC area. This just shows how much land has been lost from 2001 to 2019, what's been developed, and then what's been lost, the number of acres. So Murfreesboro pops for that. And then from our friends at the Harpeth River Conservancy, they are their own land trust that protects areas around the Harpeth, which runs through Nashville, beautiful river. According to them, nearly 60% of the assessed streams, the ones that have been studied, streams and rivers in Tennessee do not meet water quality standards. So, okay, now let's talk about the fun stuff, why we do what we do. This is a photo of some of our staff members and our easement owners at Harmony Wildlife Preserve. It's in Nashville. It's a conservation easement. Sometimes we celebrate our conservation easements when we get to complete them because it's a big deal that the landowner gave up their development rights to us. So TennGreen's work includes conservation easements. We're going to talk about those, public land acquisitions, and a little bit of restoration. So this picture is at Lamar Cedar Glade. That's our first recorded easement here in Rutherford County. That's Jane Griffin. She's the landowner. It's 206 acres of a cedar glade habitat with 3 rare species that will be permanently protected from development. So conservation easements, they are a strict deed restriction. It's a legal agreement between the landowner and the conservation organization. The land is still privately owned, and it will be in the future. And it's tailored to what the landowner wants for the future of their land. So they're all different, and I'll go over how many we have right now. Essentially, the conservation easement protects the property from extensive subdivision. You're giving up your mineral rights to us, and you can ethically timber, sustainably timber. You can keep farming as long as the conservation value is whatever conservation value you want for your land. So that's written into the deed. So whoever owns it, and the next owner follows those rules too. And it's very strict. It's the strictest deed restriction that you can get. And because we're the ones that are taking over those conservation values, we monitor the property. Monitor is called we're out there, boots on the ground, at least once a year, according to our accreditation, in perpetuity. So in my mind, we're a very special nonprofit because we have now about 14,000 acres of land that we steward every year, that if something happened to our nonprofit status, we're not sure what would happen to those parcels. So this is an outdated map, but it shows what land is currently under conservation easement in Tennessee, so we have a lot more work to do, right? Us and other organizations, because there's still so much privately owned land out there that we're working on amping up the easement program. So this is the number of easements we hold now, including what we have in progress, which is 2 right here in Rutherford County. It's about 14,000 acres. We hold 65. Usually it's with private landowners, but we do have 3 that we hold with the Army Corps that are mitigation sites. And we have a few that are publicly accessed. So we have one at Lincoln County. We have one in with Metro. So Metro Nashville owns this piece of land in Laughlin Springs, which is in East Nashville near Shelby Bottoms, and we hold the conservation easement. The value is the spring, the natural spring that runs through this beautiful forested 4.5 acres in this really highly developed area in East Nashville. So that's a little bit about our conservation easements. Do y'all have any questions about those before I move on to public land acquisitions? I know that's a lot of information. I studied wildlife and fisheries in school, and we had one chapter about conservation easements. And so when I moved over to TennGreen, what in the world? It's a lot of things that happen. Okay, so the bulk of our work, though, that I just said we celebrated 50,000 acres, has been the expansion of public lands. So what happens is, for example, here at Cedars of Lebanon, not those 2 big parcels. Those 2 big parcels are conservation easements. At Cedars of Lebanon, those smaller little 15 to 20 acre parcels were for sale by private landowners. And they called us, Cedars of Lebanon, and said, we see this land is for sale. We want to add it into the park. We want it to become public parkland, the forest and the park. So we bought it from the landowners. We held it for a little while, and then we convey it back. So convey means we can either sell it back at cost or below, or if we're doing okay with our revolving land fund, we can donate it back as well. So this does require diligence because we don't own it. We're not going to own the land. TennGreen is not in the business of owning land. So we are trusting our government partner to do the right thing with the land. But it does require diligence from the community if people are out at Cedars of Lebanon. So like I said, our typical partners, local government, state government, and the federal government, which is, we just had our first project with the National Park Service. It's called the Obed Wild and Scenic. And then we also work with nonprofit partners to help acquire land, like some big parcel for sale, with the Nature Conservancy and the Conservation Fund, because they have deeper pockets than us and they can help us buy land, which is really nice. The Wolf River Conservancy is in West Tennessee, and we have worked with them now twice to help protect land along the Wolf River that will then become the Wolf River Wildlife Management Area, and that's managed by the TWRA. They're in the middle. So these are our common partners. We work often, all the time. We've got ongoing projects with the TWRA. They manage wildlife areas and those refuges that we see throughout the state. We've got ongoing projects with state parks. So TDEC, we've already talked about. We've got ongoing projects with state natural areas. And we do some work with the Division of Forestry. So those are our typical state partners. And this is a really neat map of Fall Creek Falls. So see Highway 30 over there to the west is how you come into the park through Spencer. We have done 3 separate acquisitions there in the last 3 years. It's a little over 2,000 acres, all privately owned land that the park wants. And we sold all of it back to the state. And we use that, what's called our revolving land fund, to do that. So when we get money back from the state after we sell, that money goes right back into our revolving land fund. We'll use that money again for more public land acquisitions. So it's cyclical. Right now we're holding a lot, and so we need to sell back. We'll sell back to the state eventually, and we're holding the National Park Service land that's going to become an addition to the Obed Wild and Scenic. So we do a little bit of restoration as well. A lot of our restoration work is grant funded. This is at Soak Creek. We've done a lot of good restoration work there with the Southeastern Grassland Initiative. And that's a picture of Daniel from SGI, and that's Alice. I've already shown you a picture of her, and Kristin Henderson. She's our deputy director, and she does all of our public land acquisitions. So these are some of the successes to date where we've done work. Their colors mean different things. Green is work we've done and is completed. Red is where we're trying to sell. And then yellow is where we're working. So we've got active projects in the Murfreesboro area, which is very exciting. This is another exciting recent success. So the Tennessee Trillium is a rare wildflower. It was only recently discovered. There's only 3 places you can find it. And luckily, the landowner, the 3rd location in Hamblin County, she was conservation minded. She was actually a biologist. So we bought the land on behalf of TDEC, and they are turning it into a new state natural area. So we haven't done a lot of standalones, but this was one of our first standalone parcel that we bought. And so that's really exciting because that's a special wildflower. And then this is probably my most exciting slide of the entire presentation because it's our first recorded conservation easement in Rutherford County. I've already mentioned that it is 206 acres. Near Smyrna, it's in between Weekly Lane and the Nashville Super Speedway on Lamar Road. And it's got the limestone fame flower, which is a rare plant. That's Nashville breadroot. It's not rare, it's just really pretty. And then, of course, limestone cedar glades are threatened habitats. And yeah, so that's our very first one here. It's very exciting. So we actually have another project right here in Las Casas in Rutherford County that we're working on, another conservation easement. We have a strategic plan that I have copies of if you're interested. And we're doing some strategic outreach. So stuff like this, we're trying to think of ways to work with the city to help expand or at least have a buffer around our current green spaces. So we're just in constant contact with everybody who will listen. This is our map of our strategic land focal areas. So you can see Nashville has that white around it. Of course, the Eastern Highland Rim, that forest, that is one of our focal areas. The Knoxville area, the Chattanooga area, of course, pops in biodiversity. So that's where we're going to be focusing in the next 5 years. So how can you help? They already went over a lot of practical ways you can help. Of course, volunteering for TennGreen, any other groups, be an ambassador to the environment. So if you guys are driving along and you see land for sale that could be in the realm of conservation, give us a call. It doesn't have to be around public land already. It doesn't have to be around a park. Or if you know folks who might be interested in protecting their land from development in perpetuity, there are some tax advantages because you're reducing the value of your land by putting the conservation easement on it. And then, of course, membership. We're a member-driven nonprofit. Membership starts at $35 a year, and all of that goes back to support our work. And I have a wonderful video.
Imagine a Tennessee that sparkles indefinitely. A Tennessee with forever crisp air, countless crystal clear streams, thriving grasslands, deep misty forests, and everything in between. A Tennessee not just for us, but for the bountiful songbirds, for the migrating monarchs, the visiting box turtles, for the elk, the wildflower, and the bear. Imagine a Tennessee where the young ones of tomorrow will still be able to experience such irreplaceable treasures. A Tennessee where tomorrow and beauty are synonymous. Where community and recreation not only exist in nature, but thrive as a part of it. And what if I told you that you don't have to imagine this Tennessee? That instead you can make it happen. That you are the crucial steward. That truly it all begins with you. There's no catch, just conservation. And through it, the grandness of Tennessee, our home, our heartland, leaves the figment of imagination to firmly root into the present as it blossoms into a bountiful, breathtaking future, a forever future. And it all begins with you.
Well, one very important thing that each of you can do as an individual person in your own yard to help with more than just water quality, to help with air quality, to help with our declining insect species and all of the other environmental issues that we face, is to plant native plants. I'm a strong advocate for that, mostly because I'm a lazy gardener, and native plants do not require any sort of soil amendments or any sort of chemical fertilizers or any of those, unless you have a really, really rough situation. For the most part, our native species are adapted to our climate, they're adapted to our soil. And they are also good at creating communities that work together harmoniously in a very nice design to filter water, to provide air quality, good air quality, and to support our insect species, which supports a whole bunch of other things. So we advocate for the use of native plants. Again, this is something that anybody here in this room can do. It's an easy way to improve the environment. And we have a program that we started called the Murfreesboro Indigenous Plant Project. We collect seeds from our local wild populations. So we are utilizing our inner basin ecotypes. And we propagate them and we grow them. And we have public plant sales twice a year. And we use them in our parks to improve our landscaping there. So we do a lot of other stuff, but I know y'all want to get to your rain barrels, but I want to just mention that program. I'm always happy to come and talk to you in your own yards, if you would like, about what you can do, what you can plant there. And of course, if you live next to a stream, we also have riparian plants to help improve that too.
We always got asked, how do we attach the rain barrels? You know, how do we put it under the gutter? Was there anything particular that need to go inside it? And I found that the easiest thing to do is just cut the gutter a little shorter, and you have that natural spout, and it flows right into the barrel. Went around town looking at a few pictures. Looked at a few houses that had them, and then I found something very interesting. Just down from this house, you got a couple of barrels in the back, and I'm assuming they got them attached. This house, I saw this one today, and I had to stop. You see how high the barrel is? He's got it high enough where he can water his whole lawn, and just with a garden hose, and doesn't have to carry a bucket. It'll go anywhere around the house, just from the force of the water coming out the bottom of the barrel. This house has got everything. You see the gutter in the back. That's going. Well, I wish I got a picture of the barrel, but that's going down to a 300-gallon rain barrel, and they have everything you can imagine. Several rain barrels, just like we've got here, and you can see they got the gutter. I got the gutter actually going into that one. This one is a rain chain, so the gutter's gone, and it just comes down that chain right into the barrel. That's a close-up view of it. I thought that was the neatest thing in the world because I didn't really know they existed when I saw that. And there's their barrel, one of the rain chain, and you can see the hose coming out. And this is a large goldfish pond. In fact, you can see some goldfish right there. And they don't do anything but let the rain fill up the pond. This is another house, not the same house, but that was one of our very first rain barrels, and he's got it about 3 or 4 feet up as well, and waters his garden with it. As I said, the question always is, how do you attach it? I just cut the gutter. You put a strap on it to the house. Different type of gutter attachment. One's a bracket, but just dropping it straight into the barrel is the way I found the easiest way, and it seems to work fine.